What do we think these are before I say it? What do we think these are? Any guesses? So these are the there's also this, but these are the options of brainwaves that we as humans have available to us. Okay. So there are gamma brainwaves, which is like if we're reading a textbook, and we really, really, really want to understand something. There are beta brainwaves. Beta brainwaves are what most of us are normally in, which is like kind of like low level of stress, just like alertness. Beta is like alert, like you're walking down the street. As an adult, you're in beta. You are like sending an email, your brain is in beta, maybe gamma if like you're really zoomed in focused, right? Just like you're talking to a colleague, your brain's in beta. You're interacting with people, there's like high and low levels of stress, but mostly you're just kind of like alert and aware and still have the ticker in the back of your head of all the things you have to do later on, even though you're talking to somebody. And maybe you have like, you're like remembering that you have like a song playing in the back of your head for some reason, like you can't get out of your head. That's beta, right? All of us live pretty much all the time in beta. I assume, but I do. And I think you do too. This is alpha. Alpha, as you can see, is a little chiller, right? It's like a little bit more spaced out. Adults have a hard time getting into alpha. You are in an alpha brainwave, brain state, like right before you fall asleep, or if you're like in a deep meditation, like, or like you've just come out of a yoga class, and like things feel like a little bit hazy still, or like you don't feel like your brain's totally on. Nod your head if you've like been there, like right out of yoga, or like you've been maybe meditating, or maybe not traditionally meditating, but maybe just like listening to a song you love, and then like someone talks to you and you're like, whoa, kind of like snapped back to the real world, snapped back to beta, right? That means you were in alpha. Things were a little bit chill. You're in a spa and you're getting a massage and your brain's sort of floating, right? And then there's theta. And theta brainwaves are extremely rare for all of us on this call. Adult monks have access to theta brainwaves, like, and no, no one that I know none of you that I know of have that training. But so none of us really are experiencing theta with any sort of regularity at all. And then there's sleep. And theta is really close to sleep, but it's like deep meditation. Like, there's like there's people there are like monks in India who can like turn off their heart, like stop their heart from beating, like, or their heart will go the beats will be so few and far between that they will be alive, but they're in just such a deep meditative state that it's almost like they're like hovering between life and death. That's theta, right? Like we don't have access to theta without like deep work. Okay. So where we are is we hover between beta and gamma being like, I tried to make it like a little pointier, a little bit more spaced out, like you're reading a textbook or you're really, really focused, or you're reading a news article and you're just like really trying to understand, or someone's explaining something complex to you, you switch over to gamma. Most of the time, all of us live in beta. And we've all experienced alpha, right? We've all experienced that, like, I'm just coming out of a yoga class feeling of like, ooh, like a little much more relaxed and a little bit like what we might call spacey. Okay. So these brainwaves are true for all ages, but for adults, that's where we are. For kids, and I'm defining kids for this as for human people under 14, our kids live in theta and alpha. Our kids live there. Ages 12, 13, 14 is when you start to have access to your beta brainwaves. And then you start to have access to your gamma brainwaves. And access is like it sounds like it's good and I wrote it in this order, but like maybe we should all be in more alpha, you know. So this is not like a hierarchy of good versus bad. It's just how many waves per second there are. The reason why it's important for us to know this today is because we're literally not experiencing the same situation that our kids are at any given moment. That feeling of I just got out of yoga, that feeling of like I listened to this whole album and now like, oh look, I'm in a living room, like look at me snapped back to reality. That feeling of shifting from alpha to beta sort of quickly that we all experience as adults, that feeling of being in alpha brainwaves is where our kids live. That's what their brain is doing all of the time. So when we look at our kids as like a little bit spacey, you know, or like a little bit like, didn't I tell you that? Or like, why can't, hello, I'm talking to you. That's because they just got out of a yoga class for all 8 years of their life. It's really important for us to like appreciate that so deeply, because our experiences are not the same. Our experiences of the same thing are not the same because they're being processed through a completely different brain, different brain waves, different brain access, different neurological processes happening. So what does that mean for us? Knowing that our kids are almost entirely in alpha, and then when they're really concentrating, they're in that monk state of theta brainwaves, like when they're doing their Legos or like really deep in a project, they might even be accessing theta brainwaves like pretty easily for them. You know, they just like we oscillate between beta and gamma and sometimes alpha, they oscillate between alpha and theta, like, you know, with some ease. Knowing that, what does that mean for us in terms of what does this mean for how we see our kids? What does this mean for our perspective of them?